Hey everyone, welcome to an episode of Darshan Talks. We have, as you may remember, I'm your host, Darshan Kulkarni, and I'm an attorney. I'm a pharmacist. I help companies who are in the life sciences. So if you're interested in anything associated with the life sciences, this is the podcast for you. Today's guest is someone that I find myself very lucky to know, and I think knows pushing it, lucky to have met. But the person is a passionate leader with both commercial and R&D experience. She's worked over 20 years in the pharmaceutical biotech industry, recognized for broad therapeutic experience with biologics, small molecules, digital health products. She connects people, ideas, stakeholders, and leads large, diverse teams. She is currently the Chief Commercial Officer at Mymee Digital Health. And she was, I discovered, one of the people, if not the person, who led the Embrel marketing team. So I'm very impressed by that. On top of that, and this was, again, if you weren't already impressed, here's the part that I found even more impressive, which was she gets paid by MIT to teach and advise emerging companies. So she's helped in a variety of different companies, both in the life sciences and outside the life sciences, so in digital health overall. So without further ado, our guest today, Melinda Decker. Melinda, thank you for coming on.
Of course, thank you. And I should say the honoraria from MIT is very small and basically covers my travel costs up to Boston when we were traveling. But my husband does like to say he's so impressed that everyone else pays MIT and MIT pays me. So
exactly.
So it's great. I love doing it. I love helping folks in the health technology program.
I'm so excited for you. So what I want to start with, Melinda, is how the world has changed. So talk to me a little bit about what was the traditional world like before we started seeing direct-to-consumer products and direct-to-consumer health products, and what was it like before, and how do you sort of compare and contrast?
Yeah, so you're talking about in the specific digital health type of space, right? Yeah,
correct.
So I spent my career in traditional pharma, not med device, traditional pharma on products like Enbrel. I was not the head of the team. There was GMs above me. It was 15-ish years ago in my career. I was much younger and much more junior. But got to work on products in that way, which are very traditional, and people know how those came. And about 10 years ago, digital health really started ramping up, and I found myself in companies working on digital health products, both to be patient support for products, to differentiate products, to improve adverse events, add value, as well as to collect data. And I just say that because there's so many different things when talking about digital health on where it fits together, including in clinical trials, right, to try to artificial intelligence to figure out which assets to prioritize. So there's a lot of that. But if we look at some of the products in and of themselves, that's where we've been looking at a lot of things that have been going direct to consumer. So there are, over the counter without a prescription. There are really two different major categories. There's a whole bunch of prescription digital therapeutics. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with things from Pear Therapeutics or Click Therapeutics or Achille, who have really focused on that prescription digital therapeutics. But then there's a whole set of diabetes management programs, other things where really looking at going either direct to employers who then offer that, but over the counter. So I work at a company called Mymee. It's a great company focused on empowering people with autoimmune disease to reclaim their health and identifying triggers like food and environmental triggers that may be causing some of their symptoms in autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, those types of conditions. And the interesting thing is we can actually do that in the FDA guidance. We can actually go direct to consumers. So we actually sell our Mymee program directly to consumers. We have certainly RCTs, we have publications, we have lots of good stuff, but we're not actually required to be FDA approved, as many other software and digital health products aren't. And it's great because you can actually go out early, generate real world evidence, and really start helping people right away, which has been fantastic.
So it's interesting. You talk about these other factors that affect health, especially in the autoimmune world. I guess my first question is this what's referred to as social determinants of health? And Go ahead.
Yeah, so no, this is something different, right? So this is, I mean, there's stressors and whatnot, but it's an individual has unique triggers to autoimmune disease. So about 3/4 of the immune system, over 3/4, according to Stanford Medical School, seems like a good source, of your immune system is actually determined by environmental factors, not genetic. They did twin studies and cool stuff to figure that out. And so a lot of the things on what food you eat. The interesting thing is it's actually not necessarily just unhealthy foods, right? It's not like, okay, you're drinking too much, eating too much, gluten and sugar, you're drinking 6 Cokes a day. It's also healthy things like chicken, greens, eggplant. There's a whole set of vegetables called nightshades that oftentimes are challenging for certain people. People have reactions to those. And so it's not really social determinants, right? Because anyone could eat tomatoes and eggplant. And only some people have a reaction to it. And it's really, really hard to figure that out, what your individual triggers are. And so that's what we do. We have data analytics. We have an app we track. We have health coaches that help you through it. And through it, we've been able to see tremendous results in improving outcomes, as well as in saving money. When we have improved health, your healthcare utilization costs go down. So payers and insurers are very happy.
So you're talking about payers and insurers. Do these translate into lower premiums for patients?
So for patients, they get the improved health, right? So it's generally offered at no cost, no additional cost to the people. So they get a program that would be valued at, say, thousands of dollars that they get for free. The benefit to a insurer is that it saves money and retains their members and gets a higher star rating because they're doing good work and they're having better outcomes. So there's a lot of benefits to payers. Employers, self-insured employers, there's actually added benefits because you have work productivity. So if you think about things, lupus is a disease where oftentimes you have brain fog, right? You're having a hard time being productive at work. You may have absenteeism. And so the employer also yields that benefit in that you actually have a more productive workforce in offering these types of benefits. So we also see a big draw in general in digital health products amongst employers, diabetes, weight loss, cardiovascular. They save money. Sometimes it's passed on, but usually not to the individual, but the individual ends up healthier, and that's their huge reward.
So as I see it, I'm seeing at least 3 distinct markets, if I'm hearing you correctly. Obviously, there's the employers, there's the insurers. Has anyone targeted, or when I say anyone, are you aware of people targeting pharma companies and asking them, look, we can actually cause your drug to be, people to be more compliant with your products and seeing more efficacious results? Are those conversations happening, or is it too early? Or
Nope, they're happening. There's lots of partnerships with pharma companies, some of which are products in combination with a pharma product. Some of them are patient support across a therapeutic area. So for example, diabetes, so Noom, not a digital therapeutic, but Noom has a partnership with Novo Nordisk in the obesity space, right? So that providing Noom to people who are on their medication for obesity saw even better weight loss, even better compliance, those types of things. So that's very common. Pharma partnerships are a great place to look. I think most digital health companies would love to do that. One of the challenges is sometimes digital health products are seen as a competitive threat to pharma companies because you actually may get them so well they come off their medication, right? And so there's those challenges as well. The sweet spot usually is if it improves adherence rates, improves some kind of outcomes such as some efficacy measure, or reduces adverse events in real time. So, for example, in oncology, working with, there's a company called Voluntis, I worked with them at AstraZeneca, looking at using digital health to improve adverse events like blood pressure, diarrhea. If you can monitor, you can intervene early, and that's a huge difference.
So you're talking about how these pharma companies are seeing the opportunity, but do you see a future where the regulatory agencies are going to start saying, you know what, we'll consider bringing your product on, but we want you to partner with a company like Mymee and basically go, this will be part of your REMS as we continue?
So I don't think the FDA is going to mandate that, right? That's not going to be, if you have an efficacious product, right? It's a good safety profile. You should be able to bring it to the market. To me, some of the reimbursement side is where there might be some items. So let's say that you are 4th to market. Let's say that your efficacy is just on par with everyone else. and maybe your adverse events are worse. Your side effect profile is not as good, right? That type of thing, so safety profile, that's a type of example where it would make sense that you would pair with another product, right? I think payers also, if I use the example with Mymee, I can imagine a world in the future. So prior authorizations are common. You have to fail a generic or other line of treatment before you have access to specialty medications. So using the example, I could see where you'd have to take methotrexate plus a program like Mymee before, for 4 months before you could have access to Humira or Enbrel or one of those types of products. And if you fail it, you get to move on, just a prior auth. But we know we work for a lot of people. And so whether or not it delays treatment, so let's say that you don't need to get on, we improve your health enough that you can delay treatment by 6 months or a year on products that cost $80,000 to $100,000 a year, the payer is highly motivated, right? You're getting better outcomes. And of course, for some of the people, they will work tremendously well and they'll never need to go on to the product.
Now, this is where I would say if I was a patient, and I imagine as a patient advocate, this is the kind of feedback you probably get where you go, isn't that just a way of delaying my treatment? If I was a payer.
Right.
And how do you sort of go, no, this has a different balance and there's a different reasoning. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so additional treatment options is good for patients. So first off, that's having additional things come out. Then the other piece is we're validated, it's robust data. Payers aren't going to do this if it's going to make you have worse outcomes longer term. We're going to look at this is, just like saying, let's have you fail methotrexate or sulfasalazine first. Those are common because there's evidence that says or steroids, you have to go on steroids for a certain amount of time to see if that works. And if it doesn't work, you then can go down that path. I don't think most people expect to go on, say, specialty medications immediately. Obviously, oncology products tend to have a quick process, depending upon how aggressive the treatment is. But those are some of the exceptions.
So let's ask a different version of the question. We've now got companies like Mymee, and you talked about Noom, and I happen to use Noom, and quite honestly, I'm still struggling with my weight. But ignoring that part of it, how do you land up in a situation of, okay, I worked with you, it's helping me or it's not helping me either way, but now you have my data. Do you see a need for sort of of a more omnibus privacy principle across the country, or do you think that companies like Mymee, or not necessarily Mymee, but like Mymee, may want to say, you know what, we want to operate in different places, learn what might be the right fit for different places. So data privacy is the question I'm asking about. So Mymee and all the companies I know of in this space are committed to data privacy, right? And on top of it, any of the partnerships that we have, we go through and commit to compliance, to HIPAA compliance, to, many companies require high trust or SOC2 certification. Express Scripts, for example, requires that in order to be a digital health partner. Aetna, a lot of them. So we're very committed to that space. And I think many of us come from a background of only people who need PHI should have access to PHI, having all the appropriate compliance regulations. The one item is that most of the digital health companies start as startups. And so startups are still learning some of those processes. And that's where they need additional help coming through. So making sure you get that in, or focused on certain countries. So Mymee, for example, right now is available in the US. That's the only place we market it, because we also haven't gotten GDPR compliance on the side, or known all Middle Eastern or Asian, Latin American. There's so many different regulations, which coming from a big company, I had a massive team that could help with that. From a small company, you have to focus your resources. And so some companies have focused on certain countries in Europe. So, a few of them that have gone to the German registry, for example. But most of the companies have focused on a US market first. So that speaks to privacy. What about digital data ownership? How do you feel that's going to play itself out? And do you see that there is, let's ask this question first, just digital data ownership. What's your take on that?
Well, I don't know where it's going to land. There's obviously so much robust talk on who owns what. Making sure people are empowered to have their data. I think most people give away things for free, and I think over time we'll have more of a pay to play. Get discounts on your insurance or on products, and I think many people are not worried about that. I think it depends. I mean, using some of the examples of, let's use a different digital health product. So yesterday, Otsuka and Click Therapeutics announced they kicked off a clinical trial on a product in depression, right? And it's a cognitive behavioral therapy based kind of game interaction where people do some brain exercises. And so they're running clinical trial for a certain amount of weeks. And so, if it's approved by the FDA, prescription digital therapeutic, that would be something you do, but it's for a set period of time. And you do, you get a treatment, and then there certainly is data on you. But you're then, say, have improved your depression, which I think most people would say is worth it, and certainly may have less side effects than, say, taking an SSRI or, some other type of medication. So I think there's pros and cons, and people are going to be more educated about their data. I mean, this is Facebook data. This is data in general. I think a lot of people are switching away from the traditional. I mean, everything in the news lately, everyone's like using, DuckDuckGo and things like that now.
Right. So I guess it goes to building that quote unquote digital twin based on information that's already out there. And I mean, you talked about GDPR. I guess what I start thinking about is people have the right to take their data out if they so choose to, which GDPR allows for, but that has implications, which really brings us to the question of trusting the information and trusting data. You've talked about how you connect with payers because you show them savings. You connect with employers because you demonstrate to them that there's less missed work. You talk to pharma saying that you can differentiate yourself. How do you build trust with patients?
So we put patients first, right? It's a fundamental of what we're doing. Using Mymee as an example, we were founded by a patient, right? She tried to do this herself, created her own program. She just was helping people. It took her, 14 months to figure out something now we can do in a few weeks because of data analytics, because we have a program. But she just started helping people and wanted to help other people be able to do what she figured out. Her trigger, by the way, was chicken, healthy, chicken breast. It's her trigger that gives her psoriasis and flares and, different issues, right, that can come up. So the fundamental is we are all committed to helping people. That's part of why, people tease me because I'm so focused on getting market access for Mymee. And we aren't currently, unless we go through some of these employers, we aren't reimbursed broadly because I want to help people. And the way to help people is to get it to them at low cost, available through their employer, their payer, the insurer, whatever they have. And I have seen that people really, we're here to help them. That is our main goal. And even the fact that many of the companies have financial assistance, patient assistance types programs, people are really committed to helping people improve their outcomes. That is our goal. We also are business people, but by doing well, doing good, as the CEO of CSL would always say, is doing good, you also do well.
But that speaks to your intent, that you want to help patients. But patients are generally, they've been burned. I mean, I was looking at some data recently where they said pharma is now the lowest trusted industry, which surprises me and hurts me a little bit. But
it's gone up. It's gone up because of the vaccine.
It has gone up recently. You're right. COVID did help. But my point being, patients don't see pharma in the same way that we see ourselves. And technically you're more health now, but still the point being, how do you connect with those patients and show them the good that you're doing? What is your way of reaching out?
So, I mean, a lot of it is through advocacy of people who have come through our program in the past, right? We have great testimonials, great case stories. We work with organizations like ARDA, so the Autoimmune Society, across all autoimmune. The interim CEO, Lily Stairs, patient advocate, and she came to the Mymee program, had success. She oftentimes is a person who sees business ideas and calls to suggest them to me, right? Because she comes up. So a patient organization, those are the types of ways, but the testimonials that we can show, the data that we can show, saying how we've improved outcomes, that's how you build trust. Also having more lives come through, we've had over 1,000 people come through, certainly builds more trust than when we had the first 100, right? And having clinical trials to say we've done publications, that were robust and approved. I think those are some of the ways that individuals then begin to trust. I actually don't think digital health is seen the same way pharma is seen. I am the biggest defender of pharma, and I'm sure you are as well. I think pharma does such good, but making things available to people, affordable, and actually having them work, right? Not doing some weird slicks, side effects on the side, right? But having it work is how you build the trust with individuals.
So what I'm hearing you say, and please correct me if I'm not summarizing you appropriately, but transparency has been a part of the process of building that trust.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and you can't be fully transparent. We have a lot of secret sauce in what we do as well, which is our competitive intelligence and our differentiator and our IP. But yeah, certainly wherever you can be transparent, but sharing, good work in, for example, autoimmune diseases, over 80 different diseases. So showing examples of how we've worked in Hashimoto's or IBD or different conditions helps with that trust, right? Having that evidence, it reaffirms to people, yep, we worked in your condition before, and we worked for people like you, right? And, diverse groups of people, making sure that we have, different socioeconomic, different ages, those type of demographics, says we have helped people like you, and we hope that we could help you too.
So let's compare that to, we always talk about what can digital health companies learn from big pharma, because they're the new entrants. Let's flip that around. What can pharma learn from digital health companies? What are they doing that, just because they're a lumbering behemoth, they haven't really gotten to, that you can because you're working in a nimble company?
So the speed is the biggest difference. And to me, one of the examples is the fact that we're always iterating on our user experience, right? And so you do UX testing, you're changing your product, you get feedback, and you run with it, which would take a year to implement that kind of change in a pharma company. And we can say, this is now our new process, right? I use an example, we had to move the position of our client agreement in our enrollment process, because we found people were dropping off. Like, we want to get them to love the program before we, know the program works for them before they sign it. So we just implemented that change. Took no time. Do you know what that would take in pharma to implement that kind of change in a process? And so those types of things are, to me, the speed, that you can, with a small team, you can have powwows where you actually can make decisions. It's not, I actually do really well in huge matrix organizations, but, you have to involve 47 stakeholders in order to make a decision, which means you cannot do that quickly.
Right. Which really raises the question. You talk about 47 stakeholders in engaging with patients or trying to make a change. If you were going to do that in pharma, just out of curiosity, since I'm connecting them, in your opinion, who should own that relationship as patient centricity becomes as important as it's becoming? And what I mean by that is, I can think of medical affairs making a pitch for, we're the science holders. We want to connect with patients and we want to have these conversations. I can see PR saying, we're not actually trying to treat anything. We just want to spread the good message. I can see marketing saying, we're the ones who are doing digital reach out to individuals. Let us do that. Where do you see it actually being held, and where should it be held?
So I'll just say I've seen it many different ways, and I see pros and cons for them. So I will say that as an overarching. I think it has more to do with, you have to have firewalls in place in certain instances, right? So there's some legal type things that have to happen for compliance. But it's more if the intent is good and how it goes across. Even using your example of medical affairs, in most organizations, medical affairs is technically part of commercial, right? Oftentimes it's, the marketing company, the country president, it reports up through, which is a commercial position. Some companies, it reports up through R&D, but even that says who's the keeper of the science. I'm a biochemical engineer. I know you're a pharmacist. There's a lot of us who actually are great with science. And I happen to spend more of my career in commercial than I did. I might be breaking even. Maybe R&D is about equivalent now, but that's the types of pieces. So I think it could go many spots. Sometimes when there's a center of excellence, like a patient centricity center of excellence, that takes a mix of people from R&D, medical affairs, commercial, I've seen that work well, and I've seen it not work well because it's just one more group to get approval. So I probably don't have a definitive answer on that one, but I think the key is that you continue to focus on the patient. You bring them in for market research, for UX testing, to get their feedback, involved in the way clinical trials are designed in so many different avenues. That is the key to success with that.
Any last parting questions? Well, let's put it this way: if you were going to ask our listeners to make to answer a question for you, what question would you ask them?
The listeners. I would probably say, what are they seeing that's really cool in digital health, right? What are they seeing? There's so much going on. Where are you seeing the impact? What areas are you seeing? I mean, augmented reality, AI. I mean, we're just talking about one small piece, remote clinical trials. Where are you seeing that it's cool? And if that was a piece to add into the comment section, I love seeing new innovative companies. It's hard to keep up. I mean, people are getting new A rounds and new seed rounds all the time. And so that would be what's cool, what's exciting, what are you seeing? I'd love to hear about it. I'm sure others would as well.
So I have a rapid fire round set of questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What is an accomplishment you're most proud of?
That's not a rapid fire question. That one's not a rapid fire question.
It's worked so far. I'm sorry, you said?
I probably need to think about that. I mean, a little bit hard.
Okay, I'm going to switch to the next one. We're going to let you bounce. You get one exception. We're going to let you come back or skip that one. When are you most inspired?
When you're making a difference in patients' lives.
Very cool. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
Best is probably around how I energize others around me.
Very cool. Who is your hero or heroine and why?
I don't think I have one. I think I have a lot. I have so many people who've influenced, and you're kind of taking from them, parents, grandparents, business leaders. I'd have to think to come up with one. You're asking very interesting rapid fire questions. You should send these in advance to your guests.
I'm gonna start calling this advanced rapid fire questions from now on.
Yeah.
What is your favorite way to give back to your community?
Mentorship. My favorite. As you can tell, I'm a straight shooter on everything. This is exactly what you get. And I love helping other people in their career. I love being direct, giving them that feedback. And so that's my favorite way to do it. That's why I do stuff like MIT. Even if they didn't pay me that little honorary, I'd still do it.
How do you define success?
Joy in what you're doing, making a difference in the world.
What challenges you?
Science, evolving, digital health technology. That's a challenge that keeps you growing. Challenges in other ways are challenges of disorganized folks and people who don't follow through on commitments. But I think that's different. That's not the challenge that invigorates me.
What is the most fun you've had recently?
So we adopted an amazing little rescue dog, and that has been our joy for the past few months. She's actually sitting across from me here in a chair. But that has been rescue, adopt, don't shop. So many amazing dogs. She's 4 years old, and she didn't have a home, and now she's just bringing light to our life.
Yeah, that's my dog. He's actually hanging out right now. I adopted him a year ago, so I feel you. I'm going to ask you the last question, which is, if there was a Mount Rushmore to 2020, who would be on it? The first person you'd put on there.
Well, I mean, people would say people like Fauci, right? I would say some of the scientists at Pfizer, Moderna, right? So it might be just a generic scientist, right? So I think there's some of that piece.
Awesome.
That's probably, yeah.
It's funny. I actually had someone yesterday say that they'd put a generic physician on there. No wrong answer, but I just thought that was interesting. What I also thought was interesting was someone said Fauci, someone said I want the anonymous doctor, and you went with an anonymous scientist, which it's so interesting what you automatically mentally focused on. So we discussed a variety of things today. We talked about just the differences in commercialization models. We talked about data ownership. We talked about data privacy. We talked about the differences between digital health and with pharma. And we then went into patient centricity, and we went into sort of how Mymee and you are actually making a difference in people's lives. Is there anything I missed, you think?
I think that's the key stuff. But we've had some great discussion. I can't wait. I'm going to have to figure out a way to get back on this amazing podcast.
Well, I'd love to have you back on. Seriously, I had a great time. Obviously, we should be very, very clear. Nothing in this podcast is legal advice or clinical advice. It's all entertainment and educational. Melinda does not represent Mymee when she's having this conversation. And for those of you who missed it, how can they find you, Melinda?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. I'm speaking a lot. So Melinda Decker on LinkedIn. I'm at Mymee too, mymee.com.
Perfect. And if you like this podcast, please comment and subscribe. Please answer the question that Melinda asked. You can find me on Darshan Talks on Twitter, or you can go to our website at darshantalks.com. Thanks, Melinda. This was awesome.
Thanks all.